Do you have an inner critic? Today, we're talking about how to make that inner critic a little more helpful and rewire it into being a cheerleader. Welcome to Burnout Solutions, a podcast designed to help high achievers and healthcare professionals understand stress and how it can lead to burnout. Together, we'll explore how your brain and nervous system naturally work and why they sometimes hold you back, and how to overcome those challenges to fully enjoy the success you've worked so hard to create. I am your host, Mona Tippett, registered nurse, burnout coach, and resiliency educator. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. I hope you're having a great summer. And today I am recording this again for the third time, and my daughter is awake. It's 5 a.m, and she is planning a breakfast with her friends to watch the sunrise. And it's so cute and adorable. She just makes me laugh. But that's what summer is, right? We're just going by the seat of our pants. But I'm excited to talk today about our inner critic and how to coach that voice inside our head. And for sure, all of my clients and maybe you have that inner critic. And I think this is something that really shows up in all of us, especially in high achievers and perfectionists and a lot of healthcare workers that I've worked with, and even parents. And this is a voice that says, hey, you're not doing enough. You should have handled that better. Why can't you just get it together? You've been able to do this before. What's your problem today? This voice is often cruel and doesn't sound kind. And most of us don't even like our inner critic. And I've thought about this. How often do you want to help someone that you don't really like? Not many of us. I don't give much attention to people that I have a hard time with, and I avoid them, or I don't really like hanging around them. And I might be able to tolerate them at best, but it's really hard for me to want to help something or someone that I don't like and invest myself into them. So this voice that we don't like, we're going to help retrain it and help bring it to light. And, for years, I just thought that this critical voice was just me being honest with myself. But over time, I've learned that the inner critic is not the truth, and it's a protective strategy. And we're going to talk a little bit about bringing this inner voice to light and acknowledge it so that we can learn from it. And we can't really change what we won't bring it to the surface, and we can't fix what we don't understand, and we can't heal what we aren't willing to feel. So today in the podcast, we're going to talk about where this inner critic voice comes from and how to see if there's really any wisdom in it and learn from it, how this inner critic can keep us stuck in dysregulation, and most importantly, how to turn down the volume of this inner critic, how to rewire it into something more compassionate and helpful, and how to maybe even develop a cheerleader or turn this voice into something that can help you even more and help retrain that voice to become a better voice and a louder voice that's more encouraging that we can listen to. So let's just get started. In life coach school, I learned that it's been said that 98% of our thoughts come from something or someone else. We are taught things, we read things, we hear things from other people, and our caregivers and our earliest experiences created our blueprint of our brain and nervous system. And remember, we're not bringing up blame, but awareness. Everybody at times is doing their very best. And if everyone were emotionally regulated at all the times, they would have acted better. However, because we're all human, we make mistakes and pass on small generational traumas, which include calling people names, being critical of what others look like or do. And those voices or modeling creates an inner critic for ourselves. This inner critic is the internalized voice of those around us, usually our primary caregivers or our coaches, our teachers, our friends' parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles. even like our Sunday school teachers or commercials on TV, and now a lot of the things that we see on social media. And I want to help bring awareness that this voice was taught to you and you did not come up with these thoughts. This inner voice was something that was heard from other people and it was recorded and then it's now repeated to you. And one of the most helpful shifts that I've made in my life is understanding that the inner critic isn't evil. It's actually just trying to help and protect me. It's trying to keep me in line. It's trying to help me from being embarrassed or rejected or hurt. And so this inner voice has good intentions. And often this voice really is acting out of love and wants to help me improve in a skill or an ability. However, this voice is often recorded in a way that we feel judged and attacked, and we are not measuring up to a certain expectation. So we develop patterns of repeating this voice to ourselves to keep us safe, keep us in line, and also to protect us from other people's judgments and hide our flaws so that others will only see the good parts of us. And many of the things we do today, including being self-critical, just comes from experiences that we learned that safety depended on being perfect or staying small or never messing up or doing things just right. So instead of seeing this inner critic as an enemy, I like to think and help my clients see that this is just a younger part of ourselves trying to avoid danger. And we don't often realize that the younger part has been triggered in ourselves, and we don't realize that we even have this younger part. But this is saying, if I can just make you behave, if I can keep you, skinny, or if I can help control you and control the environment around you, then we won't be rejected or humiliated again. So, I just think it's important to realize kind of the basis of this inner voice and how we can just know where it's coming from so we can help change it. This inner critic can feel really powerful though, because when we hear this harsh voice, our nervous system hears danger. Criticism, whether from ourselves or from other people, cues our body to gear up for a flight or flee response. And if you paid attention, you might notice in your body a clenched jaw, a tight chest, some shallow breathing, maybe even something that's overwhelming that shuts us down. And Peter Levine teaches that when we have this survival energy and it can't go outward because we couldn't fight or flee in that moment from that teacher, a parent, or a coach, it turns inward, and that is what creates our inner critic. If you remember, children are very good at observing, but not great at interpreting. And so this energy is stored in our nervous system as I need to do or I need to be X, Y, and Z to survive, to please, or to be accepted. And here's the tricky part. This inner critic keeps your body in a state of chronic stress. And every time it judges you or warns you that you're not enough, your nervous system reacts as if it is under the threat. And over time, this can create a constant drip of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. And it keeps you on edge, hypervigilant, and exhausted because your body thinks it's fighting off danger all day long. And what is it doing? It's fighting with that inner critic in yourself. And this is where burnout can begin. This inner critic can push us to overwork, overachieve, overextend ourselves. It can tell us that when we rest, that means that we're being lazy, that we're not doing enough. It can also convince us that we're just never doing enough. And so we keep pushing ourselves to give more and more and more until there's nothing left. And burnout isn't often just about our workload, but it's about the internal pressure that we put on ourselves. And that pressure is fueled by our inner critic. So just be aware that this inner critic is really what's pushing you to do more and be more when we've reached our limits. So let's talk about how to work with our inner critic. Our goal isn't really to just shut this voice down because that can create more inner conflict. Our goal is to notice it, coach it, and build a stronger, kinder voice. So I'm going to break it down into a few steps. The first is just notice it and name it. When we can catch the voice when it shows up and give it a name, one of my clients called her inner voice, that's critical, Bertha. Another one called it the pusher voice. It just pushes me. And when we can just name it, it can create a distance. It can label this inner critic as really something that it is. And it's just a different part of us. And we can say, when we hear that voice, oh, okay, that's just Bertha again, trying to help. And this can remind ourselves, this is not you. This is just an old pattern. This also helps us use internal co-regulation. So we have an adult part or a kinder part of ourselves that's giving compassion to this younger self or this more critical voice. And this can allow just some compassion and allow for some integration of both of these parts so that in the future, these triggers or activation doesn't feel as big. Because like it or not, this voice has been here for a very long time. And this voice feels very needed and justified to be here. And that leads us to our next step when we can talk back with compassion. And instead of pushing this critic away, we just meet it with a little bit of curiosity and we can say, oh, here you are. Thank you for helping and trying to protect me. I see you, but I'm okay right now. Or something like, I know you're worried I'll mess up, but I've got this. If it helps, imagine a supportive presence behind you. And this is what I like to do. Like think of God, Jesus, your best friend, your spouse, someone who would never let anyone talk to you like that. And you can lean into their strength and support to help you conquer this inner critic. I also find it helpful to sometimes even just thank this voice and say, I see that you're trying to help me, but you're so mean. And it sounds like you hate me. And your constant criticism is actually preventing me from living the life in the way that I want to. And I'm sad or mad or frustrated that I've let you have this much control in my life and I've given you so much power in the past. And just having that conversation with this voice can, again, help separate it and help you realize that this voice is something that you can change and say, how can we work together for good here? How can I help you help me? And just be a little more encouraging. And that's what we're going to talk about next is how to offer a new voice and stop that war within yourself. And here are just a few things that I've learned and tried and helped to just build that cheerleader inside ourselves. And the first is just know that this is your job. No one else can change this for you. No one else can build that cheerleader for yourself. This is your responsibility to do. And part of that is just to know that this voice is a pattern and that pattern is outdated. And when we can remember that we often choose toxic familiarity over things that are unfamiliar. And this can just bring awareness and just realizing that this voice is something that has had power over you before, but you don't want it anymore. And you can help break the cycle and the power that this voice has over you. When we look at this voice, sometimes our inner voice is in first person, sometimes it is in second person, and just listen to that voice. What is it saying? If we can reword and help that voice have just different lingo, it can be helpful because how we say things matter to ourselves. If that voice says, I am, I encourage you to remove the I am statements. So for example, if your inner critic says, I am so lazy, I am so dumb, I am disorganized. I am taking Spanish lessons and I love that in Spanish, they say things differently. They don't say, I am hungry, I am thirsty, I am lazy. They change it so that when you speak, you say, I have thirst, I have hunger, I have laziness. And just saying things differently in your brain and rewriting those phrases can help. You can say, I'm not lazy. I'm just feeling lazy right now, yet I am going to make a plan. Another thought that has helped me that you can try on is using that's not me. And that's not me just can update your child belief to an adult belief that will help you. So when you're feeling unloved or unwanted or lack confidence, you can just finish the sentence. of that's not me because, or that can never be me again because, and just answer the question, because why? Well, because I'm not 3 years old anymore and I'm not in preschool having kids laugh at me because of how I look. That's not me because I don't depend on my parents anymore and I don't need to try to be perfect to please them. That's not me because that's not my life anymore. I am here right now and I'm a totally different person in a different situation. And when we can fill in the phrase, that's not me because, again, it helps us separate ourselves from the current situation from ones in the past. Okay, the next thing that has been really helpful is you can ask, if I were a compassionate coach right now, what would I say instead? Here are just some examples. Maybe it's, you made a mistake and that's okay. You're still a good nurse, mom, person. Let's figure this out and move forward. Or that wasn't my best, but I can redo it and try again right now. Or maybe, hey, what's going on? What do you need right now? How can I help you? Do you need to have a break? Do you need to take a drink of water? Do you need a timeout? Just anything that we can do to acknowledge that we might be getting dysregulated and we need to take a pause to help ourselves get regulated so that we can act our best, can help us be more compassionate and caring, and just choosing anything that you can rephrase that inner voice and just make a small shift from criticism to coaching. It can start to rewire your brain and body for trust and safety. The next is just to become your own best friend and install that cheerleader. Be someone that has your back. Be someone that encourages yourself. Be someone who wants you to succeed. Remember, you cannot hate yourself enough to change. So we really do need to give ourselves that support and encouragement. And some really easy ways is to just congratulate yourself frequently throughout the day. Train yourself to pay attention to positive things that you do. Tell yourself, good job. You handled that well. Wow, you folded your laundry right now before it sat in the basket for 3 days. You made dinner 2 nights in a row. Wow, you're on a roll. Or something like that was a hard conversation and you kept your cool. When we can congratulate ourselves frequently throughout the day, it turns on our reticular activating system in our brain and it helps us look for things that we're doing well. Along with this, even at the end of the day, if you can write down 3 things that you did well, it can, again, reinforce and train you to see the good and the positive things that you are doing. It also just increases the vibrational energy inside your body to help you feel better. And this just helps build up safety and trust and connection with ourselves. So I just wanted to give a quick example of one of my clients, Megan. She's a nurse and she was just found herself being hyper vigilant at work and was always double checking her charting and staying late and was really worried that she'd missed something. And her inner critic often said, you can't afford to make mistakes. You'll get in trouble. You have to be perfect. And when we uncovered this, I helped her notice, this isn't really neuroticism or OCD. But this was just the inner voice of a child who had been yelled at for small errors. And this voice was trying to help protect her from harm. But that same voice was the one that was keeping her stressed and on edge and draining all of her energy and joy at work. So we found some other phrases to help her find more joy and encouragement at work. And then just a personal example, my son just graduated from high school. And over the last few months, I found myself slipping back into old patterns. I found myself worrying about his decisions, judging myself for not preparing him better, and hearing that familiar voice that said, you're failing at this. You should have done more. Did you really think that was enough? How many times did you have a conversation with him? Did he understand that? Did you do your job? I don't think you did your job well enough. And it was just super fascinating to watch my brain judge myself for the things that my son was choosing. And he's a great kid. He's choosing a great life. It's different than I would have chosen. He doesn't want to go to college and he doesn't value education yet like I do. And that's totally fine. He's going to go to a trade school. He's working really hard. He's into his own things. And it's just, again, fascinating to watch my brain see what he is doing. And he wants to live a life the way that he wants to. And it might be different and that's okay. I did my best. And in just these small moments of compassion, just helped to soften everything. And I felt more present and more grounded and connected to him and myself. And that's really what self-coaching does. It doesn't make life perfect, but it can bring us back to our own emotional regulation, one moment at a time. So just in wrapping up, let's just review. So your inner voice isn't the enemy, but it's a protective pattern from your past that worked somehow, somewhere back then, but right now it's just keeping you stuck. And our goal isn't to silence it. Our goal is to coach it, to create a cheerleader and let that voice take the wheel. Let the critic ride along if it must, but it's no longer driving our day. We can turn the volume down of our inner critic and turn the volume up on our cheerleader. And we can always ask ourselves, what voice will help me become the person that I want to be today? So thanks for listening. I hope this can help shift your inner voice into one that really supports you. And just practice that today. And I'd love to hear how it goes for you. So take care. Thanks for tuning in to Burnout Solutions. If you found today's episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I would appreciate it if you could rate and review so other people can find this podcast easier. And when you're ready to stop working harder and start working differently, head on over to my website at www.monatippets.com. That's TIPPETS. And grab my free resources on rewiring your brain and nervous system for less stress and more ease. Hope to connect with you soon. Take care.